Morning friends, it's a little bit of a sad day today. I think this is going to be the last garden tour of the year. It is September, the end of September, and surprisingly my garden is still kicking. We haven't had our first frost yet, but I think this upcoming week is going to be the week where we get our first frost. So I'm going to be proactive and do some major harvesting today. I'm gonna pick all of my green tomatoes and just see what else I can harvest from the garden. And yeah, I'm gonna start getting the garden ready for winter. So I just wanna be proactive in getting as much out of the garden as I can so that if I do get a frost, it doesn't ruin any of the plants that I've worked so hard to grow all summer. The garden is definitely starting to look a little brown and sad, but a lot of things are still kicking. The cosmos are blooming. I have over here, I'll start in this corner. I planted some lettuce a few weeks ago and it's doing pretty good. So I have, this variety is called Freckles. It's from West Coast Seeds and it's honestly been one of my favorite lettuces. It's very pretty, very tasty, and it's been doing really well in my garden. And then this one I think is Tom Thumb. I think that's right. This one I really like as well. They've both done really well in the garden this year. And then if I turn the camera this way, this is one of my Brussels sprouts. And as you can see, it's been absolutely decimated by pests. This is a combination of flea beetle and cabbage moth caterpillars. The flea beetles have gone. I haven't seen any of the caterpillars in a while, so I'm assuming they have also gone away, but the damage is done. But the new leaves, the new foliage is looking pretty good, but the Brussels sprouts themselves don't look great. So for right now, I'm gonna leave all of my cold hardy veggies in the garden. So I'm gonna leave my carrots, my lettuce, my brassicas, all in the garden. I'm not gonna harvest any of those today because, for one, if you are growing carrots, carrots get sweeter after a first frost because they convert all of their starches into sugars. So if you really love sweet carrots, definitely leave them in your garden until the first frost. You can even leave them for a little bit longer. I know a lot of gardeners who don't get as hard of a frost as we do just kind of let their carrots stay for as long as they can, and then they just come out and harvest them as they need them. For me, it just makes more sense to just harvest them at one point and then leave them inside or freeze them. But I'm not going to do that until they've gotten their first frost. And then speaking of carrots, I have a bunch of carrots growing in here. This is a multi-blend of carrots. So there's some white ones, some purple ones, and some orange ones. And I think some yellow ones too, all growing in here. I haven't harvested any of the carrots in this bed yet, but the carrots in my other bed are massive, and I'll show you in a second. In this bed over here, I have a bunch of basil that is still going pretty strong. I harvested a bunch this weekend to make some bruschetta and some feta pasta. I have a bunch of parsley here that I'm going to harvest probably today and then start dehydrating this so that I have dried parsley for the winter. The strawberries overall are looking still pretty good. There's actually some strawberries still growing. I don't know if I can see any, but you can see that there's still flowers going. So this bed has 3 different types of strawberries growing, and they produce strawberries at different points of the summer. So there's some June-bearing strawberries, which are going to produce a big flush of strawberries in the early summer, and then some ever-bearing strawberries that kind of produce smaller amounts of strawberries throughout the year, or throughout the summer, I should say. So the idea behind this bed is that I'd always be able to come out into the garden and snack on strawberries, and that has been very true. I've been coming out here and nibbling on strawberries almost the entire summer, and there are definitely some little strawberries. They're not as big as the ones that I get in June, but there are some small strawberries growing right now, and it's the end of September, which is pretty incredible. My nasturtiums in this bed got completely eaten by flea beetles. For a couple weeks, my whole garden was just overrun with flea beetles, and now everything is starting to kind of bounce back. This nasturtium is growing more leaves, and you can tell now that there's way less pest damage. This is probably a couple weeks old. These ones are newer, so the flea beetles seem to have moved on, which is nice. So I will say that the highlight of my summer this year, or I guess, how should I say this? The vegetable or plant that has done the best in my garden this year has been my carrots. And I just want to show you the size of some of these carrots that I've been getting out of my garden this year. I'm just gonna pull this one. Oh, I got two here. Look at that. There's a weed. Ignore the weed. But look at the size of these carrots. So this variety here is called Lunar White. I can't even get the whole thing in view here. I don't know if you can see that. This is probably about 1.5 feet of carrot, and almost all of the carrots I've harvested from this bed and my other beds of not only this variety, but all of my carrots have been absolutely massive this year. And I don't know if it's a variety thing or the fact that I've been planting my carrots in my raised beds. So it's a lot of really loose, sandy soil that I used. And they've all just been so big. It's been pretty amazing. This variety is called Lunar White. And then the other orange variety that I planted is called Bolero, and they're also really delicious. So if you want big carrots, I recommend one, growing in really loose soil for one, and also try these varieties and let me know if you're also getting really large carrots, because this is pretty incredible. So I'm not quite sure what to do about these yet. These are my peanuts, and maybe I'll just pull one up just to see. I just wasn't sure if I should leave these outside. They're definitely not frost tender. I don't know if I'm just supposed to rip them, but you can see that there's little peanuts that are starting to grow, but not really. And then if I just go through the soil here, let me see if I feel. Oh, no. I definitely don't feel anything. I'm assuming they would feel like peanuts. And I think they grow like potatoes, where they just kind of grow off of the roots of the plant. And I am not really feeling much. Oh, look at that. That is a little peanut. I don't know if you can get that in focus, but that's pretty cool. So I at least have one peanut. I'm gonna leave that for right now. Doesn't feel like there's much in there, but I'll let them grow. The cosmos have really started to take off over the last couple of weeks. They just look so beautiful. Cosmos will always have a place in my garden. Just look at that. And the bees love them. I don't know if you can see the bee in there. There's another one over here too. Oh, there's a big bumblebee. So I had really high hopes for my artichoke patch here, but I've only gotten one artichoke so far. There's a second one growing here, but it definitely doesn't look great. This one kind of looks like it has some sort of disease maybe, but it doesn't look as nice as the first one that I've gotten. So I don't know if it was just a fluke. I thought that maybe because I put my artichokes through a cold period this year, that I was gonna get a lot more blooms or buds that I could eat them. But considering I put all 8, I think there's 8 artichokes here, and only one, it was this same plant that gave me the first bloom. I only had one plant actually give me anything. Maybe that wasn't what it was, and maybe this is just a fluke. So I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board, but at least I got one to try. I really like growing them, so I'm probably gonna give them another go next year too. So one of the reasons why I wanna get the garden kind of pulled in the next couple days is because I really need to do some winter prep. I want my garden to be as ready for next year as possible, because what tends to happen is that I get too tired in the fall, and then I wait until the spring to start a lot of the things that I want to get done. And then because our spring is so short, it goes from being not very nice at all to then really nice pretty quickly. And I feel like really rushed in the spring to get everything planted out. So I want to be as proactive as I can this year, just to get things as in good of a place as I can before the fall happens. I know I'm not going to be able to get everything done because there's not enough time, of course, but I want to try to get as much things done as I can before the snow comes. So this was my wheat patch, and please ignore my dirty fingernails now. This was my wheat patch, and my plan was to grow this wheat and harvest the berries and make some flour, but this patch got completely away from me this summer, and it's all dried up and ready. I could harvest it, but it's now also kind of interspersed with weeds that I need to also get under control. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year. I might just harvest all the berries and then plant these next year and have a bigger patch, but this is one of the things I need to tackle this fall. And then my pepper patch is not looking too bad. I harvested a bunch of peppers this week, and I have a bunch more here that I think I might actually just pull today. And peppers will go red or ripen on your counter, but these haven't even started to blush yet. So maybe I'll wait. These are Scotch bonnet peppers. It's not supposed to get cold until Monday, and it is now Saturday. So maybe I'll wait to pull those until Monday. Give them as much of a chance as I can. And in terms of other peppers, I actually don't think I have many. There's a couple shishitos on the end. Oh, there's a couple more shishitos. Oh, I probably have quite a few shishitos. Maybe I should harvest those right now. Not an amazing pepper haul. This year has been tough for peppers. I don't know if it was a combination of the really wet weather or the fact that I have so many weeds in the garden, but a lot of my friends in the area have also had a pretty tough pepper year. So I'm gonna be happy with what I got here. Not bad. I finally have some zinnias to be proud of. They finally started to bloom, which is nice. They aren't as big as I was hoping for, but I think that the spot that I planted them in particular was pretty compacted. So I don't think they did very well. It took them a long time just to bloom. And I have friends who, in their gardens, their zinnias are super tall, really healthy looking, but they also have them in raised beds. So next year, I'm going to try to really make sure that I break up the soil before, and this is for my entire garden, not just where I'm planting the zinnias. I'm going to try really hard to break up the soil so that it is nice and loose without tilling the garden. I've decided I'm not going to till the garden, but I will use like a broad fork or just a regular pitchfork to try to break up the soil as best as I can before planting, because I think a lot of my plants really struggled with the compacted clay soil that I had this year. I just noticed this. So this is one of my hascaps, and it has something on its foliage. I'm not sure what that is, if that's just the plant dying for the fall, but the one next to it, and I don't want to touch it now because I just touched the other one, this one looks really healthy. Hopefully this hascap survives the winter, but it does not look great at the moment. So if I continue down this way, I have my corn behind me here, which didn't do very well this summer. I think I got one ear of corn, and it was very small and it did not get well pollinated. So corn patch was one of the fails of this summer, but you can't win them all. So you totally can wait for the entire bean plant to die before you harvest your beans, and a lot of people do that. But because we've had a lot of rain on and off in the last few weeks. I want to get as many of these harvested as I can, because what can happen, and you can tell, I can show you these up closer, but what happens is that when these bean pods get moist and then dry and get moist again, they start to mold. And that can of course impact your beans, and then they can go bad. So I'd rather just harvest them as they dry on the plant instead of waiting for the entire plant to die, because it could be weeks before that actually ends up happening. For right now, I'm leaving anything that is still pink, because these are Barlotti beans, so the pods are a beautiful pink color. I'm gonna leave anything that's still pink and only pick the pods that are brown and very, I don't know if I can hear this, very brown and very crunchy sounding. Just in case you're curious what these look like. So these are Barlotti beans, and they are meant for drying. So they're very beautiful pink spotted beans. And yeah, so you just dry them like this. You let the pods completely dry out, and then once they're dry, you can crack them open like this and just save the beans in like a mason jar or whatever container that you want, airtight preferably. And then you can just save them over the fall and then eat them whenever you want. But they store very well, so these are storing beans. Whew, that took way longer than I expected to harvest all those beans. I'll show you what I've harvested so far. There are still quite a few beans on the vine that have not died back yet, so I'll wait until those die back before I harvest them. So that's everything that I've harvested from the Barlotti beans. A lot of people actually don't like growing drying beans because, one, they take up a lot of space. They are hungry plants, and in terms of the amount of produce that you get from the beans, it's not worth it for a lot of people. So I've actually never grown drying beans myself, so I'm gonna see how they do this year. This looks like a pretty decent pile, but obviously once you crack open the pods and harvest the beans inside, I'm probably gonna end up with a fraction of the volume of beans. So if that happens, I might just use these drying beans as my seed beans for next year, so I can grow an even bigger patch instead of having to go and buy new beans for next year. But if I end up with a decent harvest, I might just eat these ones and then buy a new pack next year, or buy a couple packs next year so that I can grow an even bigger patch. I will say that the Barlotti beans did way better than the Scarlet Runner beans. These are all the Scarlet Runner beans that I've harvested today, actually in the entire summer. So I have 4 pods here. They are still growing, but there's barely any flowers on the vines themselves. The Barlotti beans did far better than the Scarlet Runner beans. So next year I will only grow the Barlotti beans as long as they taste good, of course. But to compare, that is my Barlotti bean harvest compared to 4 Scarlet Runner beans. So there's a clear winner here. My lovely cattle panel arch with my squash and melons is starting to look a little sad, but it's still looking pretty good. So if we come in here, I have 1 Cinderella pumpkin that just started to turn orange. So I'm gonna leave that I'll probably leave the pumpkins and stuff until everything dies back. I have harvested a few Cinderella pumpkins last week. I'll show you those in a second, but there's a couple more here. That one's a pretty decent size. And then there's one there. There's a little ladybug. There's been so many ladybugs in the garden, which has been really amazing. And then there are lots of birdhouse gourds growing. There's another one there, another one there, another one there, another one there. The birdhouse gourds are doing really well, and the vine seems to be alive and not very much disease on this, and there's even some smaller ones growing. I harvested all of my acorn squash for the most part, actually. I think there's one or two that I need to grab. I harvested them last week because the vine was starting to die back, but there's a vine on this side that I actually didn't know existed until everything started to die. So there's a couple more acorn squash that I have to harvest, and then there are a few melons. I think there's four melons that I need to grab. I'm not sure if I'm gonna harvest them today. The vines are all dying back, so I'm like, I don't know if they're actually growing any more than they are or will grow any larger, but I'll show you what those look like. So I have a couple sugar baby melons. These haven't grown much in weeks. I'm just trying to see if they, oh, I mean, that's probably not ready, but let's cut it open and see what it looks like. And there's another one there. Then there's another one here. This is a cantaloupe, it looks like, and oh, that one came off really easy. So, and it actually smells really good. So let's try this one too. This one is a Haramaju melon, which I've been trying to grow for years, and I'm so excited that I finally have one to try. Looks pretty good too. And then there's another one right back there, but let's cut open these two melons and see what they taste like. Okay. I've got a knife here. Okay, so this is the little sugar baby melon. Not bad. It's definitely pink on the inside, so I guess that's good. Okay, let me cut this open. Definitely seeds. That's so good. And it's nice because it's individual size, you know? I don't have to share this with anyone. That is better than any grocery store melon. Now let's try my cantaloupe. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? I grew this cantaloupe. And it smells so, so good. I'm really excited to try this one. Okay. Let's cut this so it's a little easier for me to eat. There's lots of seeds in this one, so I'm just gonna use my knife. Nothing makes me happier than eating melons in the garden. My face is covered in juice, but it honestly does not get any better than this. My face is probably covered in melon juice right now, but that's okay. So if I come around this way, I'll show you the back of this trellis here. So here are some of the acorn squash that I have to harvest still. So there's two here, and then I have a basket here, and then I had given some away too. So there was probably 9 in total, and then these two, and then there's one on the other side of the trellis. And then I think there might be a couple more kind of tucked away in here. Oh yeah, there's one right there. So I definitely have more to harvest. But I might leave these ones because these ones haven't really turned that dark green yet. So I'll leave these ones maybe just for a couple more days, or I'll wait until the whole vine dies back. Oh, I just found there's a little melon there. Another one, so I'm very excited to harvest that. So I actually didn't think that these Brussels sprouts were doing that well because they were completely eaten by flea beetles and cabbage moth caterpillars. but the Brussels sprouts on them don't look too bad. But the thing is that yes, they don't look terrible from the outside, but if there's anything, it's probably growing inside of those Brussels sprouts. So that's the crappy thing about once the pests get to your Brussels sprouts, they kind of burrow inside of what you want to eat, and it's no fun biting into a Brussels sprout that has a little critter living in it. Then over here I have a giant zucchini that I forgot to harvest. And then I think there's one more yellow one on this side too. Yeah, there's another yellow one there. Those ones have gone bad there. So overall, everything's just kind of looking really sad and dying back, but it is the end of September, so it's not surprising. And then I just have to show you this giant sunflower. That's probably at least 10 feet tall. It's not the most beautiful sunflower, but it is very tall, which is awesome. And that's exactly what I wanted. And there's lots of pollinators that have been pollinating it. So the main thing that I really wanted to tackle today was harvesting all of my tomatoes. So I have a lot of tomatoes that are ready to be harvested or are close to being ready to be harvested. And I don't want the frost to come through and basically frost kill not only the plant itself, but the fruits as well. So I'm gonna go through and harvest any tomatoes that are ripe or are almost ripe. And then I'm just gonna leave the plants until we actually get our hard frost, and then I will start to clean up the tomatoes, but I'll give them as much of a chance to ripen as possible. There are still lots of flowers. I don't know if you can see that, but there's still lots of flowers on these plants. Even though I came through and cut the tops off, so that would help ripen all of the fruits that were currently on the plants, there are still quite a few plants that are developing right now, which I mean, I'm not gonna complain because maybe I got more tomatoes because of it. But a lot of this needs to be harvested today, so I'm gonna go do that next. This variety here is called Sart Rollois, and they're quite beautiful. They're like a yellow at the bottom and then purple at the top. I have noticed that a lot of mine have started to split as they get more mature, but they're very beautiful tomatoes. I'm not worried too much about picking the cherry tomatoes that are not quite ripe, because we've honestly have gone through so many cherry tomatoes that if I lose some in the frost, I will not be upset, because we have had our fill this summer. But I'll just pick off anything that I can for right now. So for my larger tomatoes, I'm basically gonna pick anything that's green and kind of blushing. So like these, there's a lot of really big paste tomatoes that haven't really started to blush yet. And I want them to ripen. And the thing with tomatoes is they will ripen, but they have to start the ripening process first. And if they haven't started the ripening process, they don't turn red. And then you have to eat them like green tomatoes, which is not what I want. So I might leave some of the bigger ones on just for right now and hope that they turn red in the next couple of days. Look at the size of these. These are the Amish paste tomatoes. This is probably the biggest one. There's another green one here that's massive. But I'm definitely growing these ones again. They've done really well. I will say that when we had all the rain that we had, they didn't do as well. They tended to split quite a bit, and they did have quite a bit of disease on them earlier this summer. But now they're looking a lot better, and there's way less splitting on the actual fruits themselves. Like these are pretty perfect tomatoes, which is exactly what I want for canning. Look at the size of that paste tomato. That's a pretty huge paste tomato, and all organically grown. So I'm gonna leave that one because it hasn't quite started to blush yet, and I want it to blush before I pick it. And there's still quite a few more over here that are green and not quite blushing. So maybe I will leave these ones for right now. On this side, I have these Costoludo Genovese tomatoes that are ready for harvest. So I'll pick these ones. And it looks like most of them are blushing, so I can pick all of these. Well, I should say all of the larger ones. Looks like there's a bigger one back here. Oh, feels really squishy. Might be 2 over. Actually, it's not too bad. This is a black crim, actually, not the Costoludo Genovese. You can tell by that beautiful dark green top. These have been pretty good in my garden this year, too. There's a few more hiding in here. These ones are very pretty tomatoes. Lovely accordion shape. Perfect for slicing. This variety here is Abe Lincoln. These ones don't look super good, but I'll pick them anyways. Oh, I've got a weed in there. These ones have been doing pretty good in the garden. They're not huge tomatoes, but they're like kind of perfect for snacking and for sandwiches and kind of slicing. There's one more I'm gonna grab. Not too bad. I don't know if I'll grow these ones again, but I tend to just grow the ones I have seeds for. Because I have such a big garden, I tend to grow, oh, I see a bunch more tomatoes on the other side. If I have seeds for a tomato, I usually still grow them just so that I can finish all the seeds that I have, because if I don't grow them, then the seeds just go to waste. And to me, that is a waste. I might as well just grow them, and then I usually give them away if I don't like them, or yeah, I mean, I mostly just give them away if I don't like them. So, but I feel like I'd rather that than the seeds. And sometimes I give the seeds away too. I go to a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot. Every year I go to a seed exchange, and if I have tomato seeds from varieties that I don't like, I usually give those away so that someone else can try them, and I'm sure someone else will like them. These are my tiny little Roma tomatoes. I don't know if I'll be growing these ones again, but I think this is actually the last of these seeds. They're just so small in comparison to those Amish paste tomatoes that I don't feel like it's worth growing all of these when I can grow more Amish paste with bigger tomato varieties and almost just as many tomatoes. Just gonna come around here because I saw some big Amish paste tomatoes that I forgot or that I missed. I could see them from the other side of my tomato aisle. Definitely don't want to miss these. I think that's all of the big Amish paste tomatoes. I think that's it. For this side anyways. I gotta go harvest this side of the tomato patch now. I should have brought my basket on this side with me. More Amish paste. Here's an example of the splitting that I had mentioned earlier. So when we had pretty consistent large rainfalls that would come through, I'd noticed that a lot of my Amish paste tomatoes cracked like this. So they have like these really deep cracks from the top of the fruit. But we haven't had as much rain in the last couple weeks, and when we have had rain, it's been kind of like more of a light sprinkle instead of these really large downpours. And I've noticed that my Amish paste are doing a lot better. So I think that if you live maybe in a really wet area where you do tend to get these really large storms that come through where you get a lot of rain all at once, maybe these wouldn't be the best tomatoes for you. But if you live in a little bit of a drier area, I really do recommend these tomatoes because they are so meaty, you get a lot of them, and they're massive. I just found this tomato in this patch of Amish paste, but it doesn't look like an Amish paste tomato. I'm not sure what variety this one is, but it's pretty nice. It's the only one of this shape though. Oh, maybe there's another one here. Maybe this was a mislabeled, or maybe I planted 2 tomatoes in one hole, which sometimes I do. This is actually one of the reasons why I love gardening. I don't want to say influencers or like, so I guess social media, gardening social media, because you hear people talk about different varieties that you might not have tried unless someone else recommended it. So Amish paste is one of the tomatoes that some YouTuber or someone on Instagram or TikTok recommended, and I saw them for sale, the seeds for sale in one of my local catalogs. So I figured, why not try it? And I'm so glad I did, because I will not be growing my Roma tomatoes going forward, or my San Marzanos, to be honest. These ones are just so much bigger and so much meatier, and for the amount of fruit that you get, it just makes sense to grow these instead of those 2 varieties. So I'm definitely going to switch to most of my paste tomato being these ones. And then there's another one that I heard someone recommended instead of this Amish paste tomato. I'll put the name down here because I can't remember, but I'm going to try that one as well and then compare the 2 next summer, because why not keep trying different varieties until you land on the one that you absolutely love. That's my basket so far, and I haven't even touched any of the cherry tomatoes on this side of my little tomato alley here, so I'm going to have to grab another basket. But I think they're all inside with more tomatoes, so I'm just going to leave those for right now and then find another container. I also just wanted to show you, finally, some sunflowers that have opened and look pretty. That one has a bumblebee on it. I don't know if you can see. That one also does. Very pretty. Oh, that one has a bee on it too. If you want to bring the pollinators in and some beauty in your garden, you can't go wrong with sunflowers. I have the asparagus bed. They're still putting out shoots. I have a purple variety in that corner over there, and they're looking really fluffy and nice. And then the nasturtium is also starting to come back over here. And then over here I have some carrots that are also looking very good. I don't know if you can see how big of a carrot that one is. I'm not going to pick that one because I already picked one big carrot. I don't need another one for right now. And then over here, I don't have anything really growing in this bed. This is going to be the potato bed for next year. But I just want to show you this nasturtium. Once again, flea beetles completely decimated it, but it is coming back in full force and has produced so many flowers in the last week. It's pretty amazing. So these are also 2 of the Cinderella pumpkins. I harvested these this week, and I've just been letting them sit outside to cure so that the skin gets nice and hard. Aren't they beautiful? These are like a really pretty, like almost pinky orange, almost like a sunset. They're very beautiful. They aren't great for baking. So if you're planning on growing these for baking, they are very moist on the inside. So you really have to bake them down to remove a lot of the moisture. But if you're just looking for a stunning pumpkin, I feel like you cannot beat those ones. Well, that is it for my September garden tour and potentially my last garden tour of the 2024 season. But don't worry, I will be posting some more videos. I'm hoping to do one on how I'm preparing the garden for the winter season, and potentially doing one on harvesting all of these giant carrots. Let's see how big they can get. I'm kind of excited to see. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I hope you have a wonderful week in the garden.